The instant that buzzing toy came tumbling out of the stands and landed on the turf, I swear time slowed down for me. For a heartbeat, the whole stadium seemed to hold its breath. And in that silence, something inside me whispered, of course, this would happen here. Because if there's one team in professional football that can turn an ordinary Sunday into a Shakespearean tragedy with a touch of slapstick, it's the Cleveland Browns. That buzzing gadget wasn't just a rogue fan's prank, it was a symbol. A cruel, ironic metaphor for a franchise that somehow manages to sabotage itself with breathtaking artistry. The Browns don't just lose games, they orchestrate collapses. They don't simply disappoint you, they make heartbreak an art form. And as I watched that toy spin to a stop on the grass, I couldn't help but think, here we go again. Nobody in the NFL wounds its own faithful quite like Cleveland. I've covered enough games, watched enough replays, and felt enough collective groans from this fan base to know. Heartbreak isn't an accident here, it's tradition. The Browns have perfected the delicate craft of giving you hope, dangling victory in front of your face, and then snatching it away with surgical precision. They carve into your soul, not with a clean cut, but with a jagged blade, leaving scars that never fully heal. And this week, of all people, the man at the center of the disaster wasn't the quarterback, wasn't the head coach, and wasn't even a veteran defender. It was the kicker Andre Schmidt, a rookie who was supposed to be steady, a guy meant to stabilize a position that has haunted Cleveland for years. Instead, he walked headfirst into a nightmare that will live on in highlight reels and bitter conversations for decades. Everything seemed aligned for a different ending. The Browns had the momentum. They had clawed their way back into the game, the crowd roaring, the energy surging like a tidal wave. You could feel that electricity. Every fan in the stands could taste redemption. A win here wouldn't just be a notch in the standings. It would be a statement that maybe, just maybe, the Browns had turned a corner. But Cleveland doesn't do easy victories. And just when hope peaks, disaster lurks. The unraveling began with that missed extra point, a single, small moment that felt insignificant at first, but planted a seed of dread in every fan's heart. Then came the potential game winner, the kick that could have sealed the miracle. Sailing just wide like destiny itself was laughing. And as if the football gods wanted to twist the knife, the final blow. A tip pass fluttering in slow motion before dropping perfectly into the hands of an opposing defender. It wasn't just a turnover, it was a gut punch that stole the air from the stadium. Yet amid the chaos, something unexpected happened. Rookie quarterback Shedeur Sanders, a young man many assumed would fade quietly into the background of this drama, stepped forward. He didn't deliver a game-winning throw or orchestrate a comeback drive. He simply walked over to the shattered Schmidt, gave him a dap, and said 5 words, "You're going to be good." No speeches, no cameras cued for a Hollywood moment. Just raw, understated leadership. That tiny exchange spoke volumes. It wasn't about stats or headlines, it was about composure in the storm. For a flicker of time, it felt like we were witnessing the birth of something the Browns have been missing for decades, a true leader unshaken by chaos. Here's what makes this so maddening. On paper, Cleveland has everything. The roster drips with talent at nearly every position. Myles Garrett was a force of nature all afternoon, tearing through the Bengals line like a man possessed. The secondary clamped down, suffocating big plays. Even Joe Flacco, a 38-year-old pulled from the couch and thrust back under center, looked reborn. He was threading passes, reading defenses, and for a brief, shining moment, he had us believing in miracles. But believing and finishing are two very different things. Because the Browns don't just stumble, they unravel spectacularly. Every dropped pass, every turnover, every botched kick stacked on top of the last like bricks on a collapsing wall. And as the game slipped through their fingers, the familiar question resurfaced. Is this really bad luck, or is there something rotten at the core of this franchise? Accountability lives at the top. Drafting Shedeur Sanders, that was GM Andrew Berry's decision. The game plan and play calling? That's on Kevin Stefanski. And yet, year after year, the Browns reload, the fans dare to hope. And the result is the same crushing déjà vu. Stefanski's post-game remarks ticked every predictable box. Lessons learned, proud of the effort, eyes on the next game. But the words rang hollow, like an actor reciting lines from a script he's read too many times. This wasn't just another loss. It was a reminder of a cycle that suffocated Cleveland for generations. Fresh talent, renewed energy, a promising roster, and when the spotlight burns hottest, they implode. Again, and again, and again. But buried within this disaster was a moment that could redefine the future. A rookie, standing calm in the storm, showed what leadership looks like, not through stat sheets or headlines, but through quiet resolve. That clip of Sanders whispering encouragement went viral not out of pity, but because it revealed something rare: poise under pressure, grace in the aftermath of failure. The locker room felt it. Even as social media torched Schmidt, the players closed ranks. Myles Garrett himself reminded everyone, we've all been there. There will be games like this. It's part of every NFL career. That's the paradox of Cleveland football, the external chaos versus the internal moments of humanity that somehow keep the hope alive. The Browns didn't lose solely because of one missed kick. They lost because these moments compound, layering on top of years of heartbreak to create a culture of collapse. Until this organization demands accountability from the front office down to the sideline, these nightmares will keep playing on repeat. Talent alone isn't enough. Leadership, discipline, and a refusal to accept the same old story, that's what has to change. And maybe, just maybe, amid another unforgettable Browns collapse, we witness the first spark of that change. Maybe those 5 quiet words, "You're going to be good," weren't just for a rookie kicker. Maybe they were a whisper to an entire franchise starving for something to believe in. I need to be brutally honest with you, the Cleveland Browns cannot afford, under any circumstance, to sideline a player like Shedeur Sanders. I don't care if a label next to his name says rookie. Labels don't measure what happens when the lights are blinding, the stadium is roaring, and the game hangs by a single, fragile thread. When others panic, Sanders exhales. When veterans hesitate, he steps forward. That calmness in chaos, that raw instinct to lead, it isn't taught in a classroom or drilled on a practice field. It's wired into who he is, and that's what makes him different. Sanders isn't just another athlete who can throw a spiral or read a blitz. He's the kind of budding leader who can reshape a locker room, who can breathe life into a fan base that has been living on heartbreak for generations. If Cleveland keeps turning away from leaders like him, they aren't just missing out on talent, they're forfeiting their chance to rewrite their own destiny. No more excuses, no more wait and see. Either the Browns seize this moment, or they let the heartbreak calcify into their permanent identity. And here's the thing that haunts every Browns fan I've ever met. Are we cursed to relive this agony year after year? Is this a franchise doomed by bad luck, or is it the consequence of shaky leadership, questionable discipline, and a front office too scared to take bold risks? Maybe it's not a curse at all. Maybe it's just a series of timid decisions that have turned hope into habitually broken promises. Does Cleveland need a total organizational overhaul from top to bottom, or are they just one fearless move away from changing everything? And what about Shadur Sanders himself? Should he be handed the reins sooner rather than later? That clock isn't just ticking in the background, it's screaming, and every second that passes feels like another opportunity slipping through Cleveland's fingers. Listen up, Dog Pound faithful, this is breaking news straight from the heart of the AFC North. And trust me when I say this could shift the ground beneath the entire division. What I'm about to tell you isn't a casual headline to scroll past. This is a genuine game changer, something that could propel the Browns toward a Super Bowl run while sending one of their fiercest rivals into years of scrambling. But before we dive headfirst into the details, I need you to do something. If you bleed orange and brown, if you feel every heartbreak and every miracle deep in your soul, then smash that subscribe button. Let's strengthen this community. Let's hit that 1K milestone together. Share this with your friends, your family, your co-workers, anyone who's ever yelled at a TV screen when the Browns let a game slip away. This isn't just a channel. This is a movement, and every single one of you is part of it. Now, let's talk about what went down in Cleveland's Week 1 clash with the Cincinnati Bengals. If you missed it, you might not understand how seismic this game really was. This wasn't just another season opener. It was an emotional battlefield. A clash that revealed the Browns' raw potential, their resilience, and the brutal obstacles still standing in their way. And at the center of that storm was Myles Garrett. For 3 quarters, he was quiet, contained even. But in the fourth, the beast woke up. He tore through the Bengals' offensive line like a force of nature, delivering 2 crushing sacks that sent a message to the entire league. He is still one of the most terrifying defensive forces alive. That defensive surge forced a massive 3-and-out, handing the Browns a golden opportunity to steal the win. But as every Cleveland fan knows too well, fate is rarely that kind. The Browns clawed, fought, and bled for every yard. But in a gut-wrenching finish, they fell 17-16, sealed by a tipped interception from Joe Flacco with just 90 seconds left on the clock. It was a brutal ending, the kind that rips the air out of the stadium. And yet, within that heartbreak, there was proof that this team has a different foundation than the Browns of old. Flacco, back under center, showed he still has fire in his arm, throwing for 290 yards on 31 of 45 passing, connecting with Cedric Tillman for a gorgeous third-quarter touchdown that kept hope alive. Tillman, calm under pressure, snagged 3 clutch catches for 33 yards, proving he can be counted on when the game is on the line. For all the doubters who questioned Cleveland's passing attack, this was grit and composure under fire. Defensively, the highlights didn't end with Garrett. Isaiah McGui's sack on third, and 21 was a turning point, and Carson Schwesinger's punishing hit on Chase Brown forced a fourth down that had the stadium roaring. This was smash-mouth football, relentless, physical, contagious. And if you dive into the numbers, you'll see even more evidence of growth. Cincinnati converted 6 of 7 third downs in the first half, but after halftime, just 1 of 7. That's not luck, that's discipline and adjustments. Even Jamar Chase, the nightmare matchup himself, was locked down to a mere 2 catches for 26 yards, thanks in part to Greg Newsome III's 2 critical breakups. Let's not forget the statement Cleveland made right out of the gate. A grueling, clock-chewing, 16-play, 67-yard drive capped by Raheem Sanders bulldozing into the end zone from 1 yard out. In his NFL debut, Raheem showed why fans should be excited. 8 carries for 29 yards on the ground and 8 receptions for 64 yards through the air. That kind of versatility is pure gold for an offense that's been searching for balance. But here's where things get even more complicated, off the field. Because what unfolded in the press room after the game wasn't just a bad question, it was a symptom of something bigger. The mainstream media's double standard is alive and well. When Shedeur Sanders sits at the podium, he doesn't just get asked about reading defenses or adjusting protections. He gets baited. Emotional grenades disguised as questions get lobbed at him. And when he doesn't take the bait, when he calmly and respectfully pivots back to football, the irritation is palpable. Mary Kay's line of questioning wasn't just inappropriate, it was part of a pattern we've seen over and over again. Speeding tickets turned into scandalous headlines. A missed rep at practice spun into a story about a bad attitude. And somehow, it always seems to be young black quarterbacks under that microscope. Remember when Cam Newton was criticized for smiling too much? Or when Lamar Jackson was mocked for not being media polished enough? Now, Shedeur is labeled cocky because he wears a designer watch and refuses to apologize for his confidence. Let's be clear, that's not journalism. That's control. It's an attempt to humble athletes who refuse to shrink themselves to fit a pre-approved mold. But Shedeur didn't break. He didn't lash out. He didn't give them the meltdown they were fishing for. He stayed calm, professional, and unshaken the way Dion raised him to be. And that composure, it rattled the haters. They expected immaturity. They got poise. They expected arrogance. They got a leader. This isn't just about Mary Kay or one awkward press exchange. It's about power dynamics that have been woven into this sport for decades. It's about the tired, racialized playbook the NFL still hasn't outgrown. The one where a white quarterback's swagger is celebrated as leadership, but a black quarterback's confidence is condemned as arrogance. Same actions, completely different headlines. And that's why this moment matters so much. Shedeur Sanders isn't just a promising rookie, he's a catalyst. He's forcing the league, the media, and the fans to confront uncomfortable truths. He's showing us what leadership, grace under pressure, and self-assurance look like in 2025. And he's daring the Browns to stop hesitating, to stop playing scared, and to start playing bold. Because the window for this team isn't going to stay open forever. The clock isn't ticking quietly in the background anymore, it's screaming. So I'll leave you with this, Cleveland, what's it going to be? Another chapter in the Heartbreak saga, or the first step toward a legacy worthy of your passion? I know what I want to see. Do you?